Chapter 2: The Turbulent Teenage Years. Adolescence arrives not as a gentle transition, but as a torrent, sweeping David into a world of new freedoms, risks, and revelations. Chapter 2 traces his journey through canoes, camps, and curtain calls, where the lessons of brotherhood, belonging, and resilience are forged in the unpredictable currents of teenage life. Through triumphs and turbulence, David begins to discover the person he is becoming, shaped by both the shadows and the light of these formative years. The quiet I'd found after nearly dying in the summer of 1981 didn't last. Quiet never did. Not for kids like me, not in that era. Silence was dangerous. It made you think. It made you feel. So by November, the sharp edge of guilt had worn down into a manageable ache, the kind you could muffle if you kept the volume of life loud enough. And I always found ways to keep things loud. The rhythm came back easily, like muscle memory. Weed tucked into my hoodie, booze already in my bloodstream by lunch, orbiting Connie Smith like some desperate moon, searching for the gravitational pull of someone who could make me feel grounded, if only for a moment. Connie didn't ask me to chase her. She just existed with a kind of quiet intensity that pulled troubled boys into her orbit like moths into porch light. I wasn't the first. I wasn't the last. But I was the one most willing to burn. The bus ride to bad decisions. That weekend, Connie, Stevie, Welcome, and I hopped the CDTA buses out to Wynantskill, a region of back roads, wooded cut-throughs, and spread-out neighborhoods where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. It was the kind of place where boredom made trouble inevitable, and teenagers became explorers of every forbidden thing within reach. We were headed to see her boyfriend Ray, a rough-around-the-edges older guy who lived in a haze of weed smoke and bad decisions. I didn't like him. Not because he was with Connie, but because he represented what I was becoming, and seeing your future in someone else's downfall is never comforting. The vodka we carried stood out crystal clear. One more bottle stolen from one more neighbor's stash. At 15, we weren't stealing for thrills anymore. We were stealing because it was automatic, because our generation learned to take what wasn't nailed down and call it survival. Drunk on back roads. By afternoon, Stevie and I were staggering down a rural road in North Greenbush, drunk and buzzing, the landscape tilting slightly with each step. Those upstate back roads, lined with split-level homes, patched asphalt, and hand-painted mailboxes, had a way of turning teenage recklessness into myth. Every telephone pole became a landmark. Every ditch became a joke. Every shadow dared us to push farther. We laughed at nothing, the stupid, breathless laugh that only teenagers and the very drunk can manage. A laugh that feels invincible until it cracks in half. Across the way, Cumberland Farms glowed beneath its fluorescent lights like it was calling my name. Convenience stores in that era had a particular magic. The smell of coffee burned since dawn, newsprint on the counter, gum racks, beer coolers that hummed like industrial freezers. To a 15-year-old hustler in 1981, it wasn't a store, it was a challenge, and I accepted. No hesitation, no fear. I walked in, grabbed a 12-pack of beer, and walked right out like I had every right to it. For a brief second, I felt untouchable, a kid beating the world at its own game. Then came the lights. Red and blue lights splashed across the trees, the pavement, our stunned faces. That stomach drop moment when your brain sobers up just enough to realize, shit, we're screwed. The sound of gravel crunching under police tires erased our laughter instantly. We bolted, yard to yard, fence to fence, hearts pounding vodka and adrenaline. It was the kind of chase that defined our generation, cheap shoes slipping on frosted grass, cold air slicing our lungs, fear disguised as laughter, teenage myth colliding with adult consequences. Stevie tripped over one of those hideous rubber tire planters, white wall paint chipping off, weeds growing through the middle, sprawling face first into the dirt. I spun around just in time to see the cop closing in. I tore forward, only to meet a chain link fence at full speed. My face slammed into steel. Stars exploded, the world tilted, and just like that, we were caught. The breakdown and the punch. The cops dragged us back, shoved us into the cruiser, and that's when Stevie broke. The kid who always seemed tougher, cooler, untouchable, melted. He started crying. Not sniffling, not tearing up, crying. Begging the officers not to call his parents. His voice cracked. His shoulders folded inward. He looked small, just as small as I always felt inside. Something primal snapped in me. I didn't want them to see him like that. I knew what cops did with the weak ones. I knew who they'd punish more. And in a twisted moment of teenage logic fueled by booze and adrenaline, I did the only thing my cracked 15-year-old brain could come up with. I punched him in the face. Not to hurt him, to save him, to make the cops think I was the problem, not him, to shift the blame, to take the weight. And it worked. Stevie walked away with nothing but a bruise. I took the fall. The cost. The consequences came fast. Court dates, probation meetings, fines, angry letters, school discipline, community service, 120 hours scrubbing North Greenbush police cruisers till they shined like chrome tombstones. 120 hours bleaching the linoleum hallways of Wynantskill Elementary. Saturday after Saturday, pushing a mop like I was working off a debt I wasn't sure I owed or understood. Those buildings smelled like pine sol, old books, and institutional disappointment. And through it all, my father sat in the back corners of courtrooms, not yelling, not lecturing, just existing with those heavy, mountain-sized sighs that made the air feel thick. His silence spoke volumes. Fear, exhaustion, disappointment, love, and a helplessness neither of us had the vocabulary to name. The dangerous lesson. Coach wasn't a nickname anymore. It was a brand to teachers, cops, neighbors, bus drivers, to myself. But here's the twisted truth. I felt stronger, not better, not healed, not wiser, just stronger. Like I had taken the blast and walked away. Like consequences were things that happened to other kids. It was a dangerous kind of confidence, the kind that tricks you into believing you can outrun your own shadow, your own reputation, your own destruction. And at 15, I still thought I could. Thank you for spending this time with me, the Pussycat Wizard. These moments we share, whether in shadows or in light, are threads in a much larger story, one I'm honored to tell with you beside me. As always, the journey continues. The next chapter subsection is waiting, and I'd be honored if you'd walk with me a little further down this road. Until then, keep the wonder alive, and I'll see you in the next episode of Little Did I Know.
I quiet my mind, a tempest rages. Mother's convictions, the script of ages. Her voice a beacon in the fog of my prose. David, she chides, in secrecy it goes. Beneath my breath a silent plea. Mother, I hear you, but can you hear me? Your savior, your faith you implore, I embrace. Yet within I wrestle with my own grace. Torn between the divine and my truth. A son's love, a personal sleuth. Have you surrendered? You persistently ask. In your version of Jesus, should I bask? Jane, your call for aid. He's different, you say, a label pre-made. In your eyes I see the fear of a son's path, not straight but queer. Stand at the crossroads of self. My identity not just a book on the shelf. Mother, your love I'll always hold dear, but my journey is mine. Let this be clear. Cross paths